How's it going, guys? JRiceSports back in with another video. I think it's probably been years since my last one. I've done a little bit with BDB's mock drafts. Our once-a-year videos appeared on Miller Football's channel a couple times, I believe. And I guess, we just recorded our BDB annual mock draft a couple days ago, and it kind of got me in the mood and motivated to do my own little mock draft, something I enjoy. It's a very casual content to make, just a little bit of fun. I'm not super knowledgeable on, scouting. Like, I don't go super in depth with the film. It was more so I watch a little bit of college football. I've seen a little bit of film here and there. So it's more just like a fun thing, what I think is going to happen, that kind of a thing. So with that being said, if you do want more of a in-depth scouting, things like that, I will go ahead and shout you out to Miller Football's channel. He does a really good job of going in depth, giving you pros and cons of players, really breaking down the better players in the class. I think he does his own spreadsheet of the players he scouts. He does so many. There's players he scouts who I've never heard of in my entire life. So throwing that out there, I'll tag it in the description down below. But this is just going to be me having a little bit of fun, I guess. I also probably will tag the BDB mock draft. I think it's on Miller's channel as well, down below, which that's going to be me, Miller, Nicole, and Grayson all doing a 4-person mock draft where we rotate through the picks, which I'm going to try and avoid doing the same picks here that I did there. Try to keep it fresh, fun, whatnot. That one was also more like what I would do if I was the GM on my picks. This is going to be more so what I think is going to happen. I might kind of add some personal flair so it's not just stale and boring and doing what everyone else is doing. Because I might throw some curveballs in there. I don't really know yet. I haven't picked them beforehand. I'm going to pick as we go. But I guess without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started on that, which with the first pick, that's not really – the draft starts at pick 2. I think we all know that. There's zero doubt in my mind the Raiders are going to go with quarterback Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana. Without a doubt, they need a quarterback, probably, honestly, the only quarterback draftable in the first few rounds, in my opinion. I'm a big Mendoza fan. Watching him with Indiana this year was magical. I mean, it was a true Cinderella story throughout the entire year. Going undefeated. Indiana's not really known as a football powerhouse, and then competing with the big boys in the college football playoff, in the Big Ten, which has come to be probably up there with the SEC and strongest conference in college football. Just went out and performed at every single level, every single game, and obviously is going to be the pick there. For those of you who don't know, my stepdad, being a Raiders fan, he's excited. I'm excited to get to watch some hopefully actually exciting Raiders football with Mendoza at the helm. After that, with pick 2 in the New York Jets. So maybe not what I would do, because I actually picked second in the BDB mock draft. This isn't where I went. But for this one, I will actually go with Arvell Reese, the edge from Ohio State. The Jets kind of just could use just about every position, especially on that defense. That defense has so many holes in it. Trading Quinnen Williams, they don't really have corner. They don't have D-line. They don't really have any good linebackers. They just traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick, but they still need basically everyone on that defense. It's very, very underwhelming. Arvell Reese, he's very versatile, which is something I really like out of him. He can play both edge or linebacker. They've talked about which one he'll play once he gets to the pros. And I think he would be a good fit with the Jets. And I think they could do a lot with him. That would be pretty exciting. I think it's not to the extent of a Micah Parsons, but I think he can be a very, very good football player for the Jets. Up next is the Cardinals, which is Nicole's second favorite team. There's players she obviously would like to have here. someone she wouldn't like to have. So to, make her feel a little bit better, I will be avoiding a certain someone, and I'm actually going to go with I might butcher this name. I'm really bad about pronunciations. But Francis, you know what? We're just going to go the offensive tackle for Miami. I'm not going to even attempt that. I've heard it so many times from Miller's videos and from our mock draft, but I'm just going to avoid that till I know what I'm talking about. Offensive line, something I don't really scout. I've literally gotten all of my opinions on offensive line play from Miller. From what I've seen, I don't know what I'm really looking at when scouting offensive line. I don't know what to look for. Miller's very good at that, so I'll let him stick with that. But probably the best offensive lineman in the draft, probably going to be the first one taken. Cardinals need an offensive lineman opposite of Paris Johnson. I think it's a good fit. Maybe a little bit high at 3, but very good player. And I think it would make sense for the Cardinals to try and protect whoever they're going to have at quarterback, whether that be them drafting one, trading for one, Tyson Bagent for a second rounder, or, sticking with Jacoby Brissett if they decide to pay him. Gardner Minshew, I know, coming off an injury. I don't know if he's even going to be ready for the start of the season, but whatever they do, they need some offensive linemen to protect them. Next up, we have at 4, the Tennessee Titans. They could go a lot of ways. I could see them going, for a weapon for Cam Ward. They could maybe go for an offensive lineman. They could use some defensive players. I think I would lean receiver, but I'm actually going to go with my favorite player in the entire draft. If you do follow me on Twitter, I'll leave it in the description if you want to. I tweet about football and the Bears quite often. More so the Bears, but sometimes I'll have opinions on other big sports things. But I had tweeted a few times, my favorite player in the entire draft is actually Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State. I've loved him since he got into college football. Me being a UT fan, he has kind of crushed my hopes and dreams multiple times as we played Ohio State, and they usually whoop our asses every single time. And he has a big part to play with that. But Caleb Downs, outstanding football player. I think he, a couple years from now is going to be viewed as the best player in the draft. And I think he's going to become an all-pro level talent very, very quickly. I know it's not like a premier position and whatnot, but Caleb Downs is the best safety prospect I've ever scouted, in my opinion. You can't go wrong with a player like that, is all I'm going to say. Next up, we have at 5, the New York Giants. They could go a lot of ways as well. They just traded Dexter Lawrence for pick 10, which I think is, they have it updated on this as well. I think the trade was yesterday. But they could go a lot of different ways. There's a lot of good players left. I'm actually going to go with Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State. I think on the BDB mock draft, I don't know if it was while we were recording or if it was right afterwards. So again, big UT fan, big Anthony Hill fan, specifically Anthony Hill. I think I said he was my linebacker 1. Yes, in that draft. I actually meant linebacker 2, kind of glossed over the fact that Sonny Styles existed, even though we had just talked about him in that mock draft. So to make me sound less insane, I have Anthony Hill as my linebacker 2, which again might still sound crazy. I'm very high on him. But Sonny Styles, very clear linebacker 1. I think he's the only linebacker draftable in the first round. So he's insane. He's an insane athlete. I don't remember his exact 40 time, but it was something crazy. The Giants have, I don't want to say they have a good team, but they have pieces. They have a solid running back room with Cam Scatabo and Tyrone Tracy. You have Malik Neighbors coming back from injury. Theo Johnson at tight end. Jackson Dart looked really good as a rookie quarterback. Their offensive line isn't horrible. It could use some more pieces, but it's not anything that's absolutely atrocious. Their defense, they did trade Dexter Lawrence, but they still, have As of now, Kayvon Thibodeau, it's rumored they're less likely to trade him after trading Lawrence. They got Brian Burns. They got Abdul Carter, who I think is going to break out a little bit this year. Some secondary pieces. I think adding a good linebacker like Sonny Styles would be huge for them. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns, who I'm not big on Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he is an NFL caliber like starting quarterback. I know there was the whole Pro Bowl thing, but I think we've come to learn in the last few years that Pro Bowls are pretty meaningless when it comes to evaluating players in the NFL nowadays. A lot of players don't want to do it. They're with injuries. When you get to the bottom of the barrel of starters because of injuries and people just not wanting to be in the Pro Bowl anymore, it means a whole lot less. But with that being said, he's 99% sure going to be their starter this year unless something crazy happens. So I think because of that, you have to add pieces around him. They don't have all that much. Jerry Jeudy, I don't think is that great of a receiving option. Harold Fannin was a good rookie tight end. They lost Njoku in the offseason. Just they need to add talent to him if they want him to succeed. Whether that be a receiving weapon, or something in the run game. I am actually going to do. I was leaning Carnell Tate, but I think because Jeremiah Love has fallen, I think that's going to be the pick for me at 6. I'm someone who's not very high on drafting running backs early, but whenever it becomes someone who's just that talented, like as it was Ashton Genty last year, again, big UT fans, Bijan Robinson, Todd Gurley, like those guys who are going to make an immediate impact. And running back, while it had lost some value in recent years, is kind of starting to take that swing back to being a valuable position. Shedeur, if you think he's going to be a talented quarterback, getting a good run game going, taking some pressure off of him would be very good. And Jeremiah Love, I'm not putting him over Caleb Downs personally. I love Caleb Downs, but Jeremiah Love is my second best player in this draft. So I think him going at 6 makes plenty of sense. Next up, we have Washington. I could see them going a plethora of different ways. This is tough. I'm really high on Ruben Bain. David Bailey's still there. I can see them going receiver. They have Terry McLaurin, and not much outside of him in the receiving game. Like Luke McCaffrey hasn't really developed into anything. Ben Sinnott I was really high on coming out of the draft. Hasn't really developed into much yet. But I think I'm actually going to go David Bailey here. I'm not the highest on him, but I know a lot of other people are. And falling to 7, I could definitely see Washington needing an edge, and this makes a lot of sense. So that's where I will go with. I don't think he's a bad prospect whatsoever, but I personally have Ruben Bain above him. Ruben Bain is like my third best player in the draft, from my personal opinion. I know he has the thing with the shorter arms, but I'll get into that whenever he gets picked. But David Bailey, I think, can develop. I think Dan Quinn has a very good I think he's a very good defensive coordinator and defensive guy. I don't know how I feel about him as a head coach just yet. He definitely has some issues. But I think giving him a player like David Bailey, he could develop into something. Next up, New Orleans Saints, another one of those teams that literally could use absolutely any player. But I think we are going to actually take the first wide receiver off the board. I think Carnell Tate to New Orleans makes a ton of sense. You give them a player opposite of Chris Olave, another Ohio State guy. Chris Olave is more of a smaller stature, route runner. He's going to get open, that kind of thing. Carnell Tate, still a very good route runner, but he's also has that ability to, go up and get it, big-bodied receiver, that kind of a thing. I think it's a good different kind of receiver than Olave. And I think Kellen Moore, who surprised me a lot with New Orleans last year, just as a culture and a talent standpoint, I think they overperformed. And I think giving him a weapon like Carnell Tate would be huge for New Orleans. Number 9, Kansas City. Now, I think that they could go cornerback here, as their corner room is actually absolutely atrocious. It's Noah Williams and Christian Fulton, I think, is their top 2 corners as of now. But I actually do like this corner class a lot. Both at the top, I think Mansour Delane is good. Jermon McCoy missed all of last year with injury, but his 2024 tape is outstanding. I think he was the consensus number 1 corner before getting injured and missing the whole year. With that being said, I think there's some people in around day 2 picks, I guess you could say, that I think would make a ton of sense. There's also someone who I could see them taking with their second first-round pick at corner, who I'm huge on. With that being said, I think with how far he's fallen, being my 3rd favorite player in this draft, I think the Chiefs make a ton of sense for Ruben Bain. I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. I get the arm length thing when in the sense that statistically no one's been successful with arms as short of his. Miller did point this out when we did the BDB mock draft that's been recorded officially. James Harrison is rumored to have his arms around the same length, and he's a Hall of Fame type player. I think that how I like to evaluate talent is more so watching film than worrying about the statistical part of things of players this size and this weight doing this. If they perform well in college and I on film they perform well, I don't want to take into account actually they have short arms, so I don't think they could be good. I think Ruben Bain is still going to be an outstanding NFL player, and I think mixed with the Chiefs, he can help them immediately, and they're still in a win now mode, even though having a really bad year last year. And I think that would be a huge win at 9 for Kansas City. Coming in at 10 with the Giants, as they traded Dexter Lawrence for the 10th pick straight up. Obviously, you could go at D-tackle or D-line to replace Dexter Lawrence. I still think they have a very strong D-line as things stand, so I don't think they have to go there. They could go O-line. Corner makes a little bit of sense. Safety opposite Javon Holland, maybe. They have Newman, but could go a few different ways. I think what I'm going to do here, actually, I'm actually going to go Ioane, the offensive guard from Penn State. Again, Miller is kind of the one who brought me to attention on him. I don't evaluate offensive linemen like that. Miller has done an in-depth breakdown on his game, both on TikTok, YouTube. Very good player from what I've seen. Miller does a very good job helping you understand what to look for. And I think it's Miller's favorite offensive lineman in the class. They could use an offensive guard. It just makes a ton of sense there for them to go for a guy in the interior. They also helps Jackson Dart go off defense with the first pick, offense with the second. And I think he will be an outstanding player for the Giants as well. With the Dolphins, very, very weak roster, could use just about anything here. I'm actually going to go with Mekhi Lemon, the receiver from USC. I like him a lot. I like him a lot. I think I probably like him more than Carnell Tate. Just from a talent perspective, I know Tyson has the injuries, but I like Tyson a lot. I like Lemon a lot. Carnell Tate, I think, is up there too. I don't think there's really a receiver who stands out among the rest drastically, and I think Lemon, Tate, and Tyson are all up there in that top tier. And I think he would be a good fit with Miami. And they have to give Malik Willis some kind of help. They traded away Waddle. Waller's gone. They don't really have many weapons whatsoever. They don't really have much talent across the roster at all, and I think Lemon would be a good piece for now and for the future. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys. With how this board has fallen, I'm going to keep it quick and simple. I think they go Mansour Lane. He is probably who I think is the best corner in this class. I know McCoy had the great 24 shape, but the injury does kind of concern me. Missing an entire year of football is kind of a big deal. And Delane has been great at LSU. So I think Dallas makes sense to go corner there. Next up, we have the LA Rams. As you guys know, probably the Rams are my second favorite team behind Chicago, mostly from the Cooper Kupp era. I could see them going corner here. I could see them going sneaky pick for a receiver. This is kind of tricky. I might do a little bit of a curveball here, actually. I'm going to go with, I know they just drafted Terrence Ferguson in the second round last year, but that tight end room, he is still pretty weak, and I think they could go for a Kenyon Sadiq. Would be a huge weapon for Matthew Stafford in potentially his final year. Gives them another weapon. He's underrated as a blocker. He's an insane receiving weapon. He's a freak athlete. And with an offensive line like Sean McVay, I think they could do a lot with him. And that would just be an exciting piece to add to them. And that helps me switch it up a little bit. I haven't really predicted him going to LA yet, but that's what I'll go with here. Next up, we have Baltimore. And this is usually higher than I have him picked because of the injury issues. But I'm actually going with Baltimore taking Jordan Tyson, the receiver from Arizona State. He's had so many injuries over the past couple of years, whether it was like his knee, his shoulder, whatever it was. But just from a talent perspective, he is one of the most insanely talented players at receiver I've seen. Insane route runner, great hands. I like him a ton, and if he can stay healthy, that truly gives Lamar Jackson an elite wide receiver one that he has needed in his career. He's had good receiving weapons. Like, I love Mark Andrews a lot personally. Isaiah Likely was a solid tight end too. Zay Flowers isn't a bad receiver, but I don't think he's a true alpha wide receiver one. I think Jordan Tyson can bring that to Baltimore. We have Tampa Bay up next. I'm actually going to go with Jermon McCoy. I know it's not the biggest need they have, but Jermon McCoy is a very, very good player. I think falling to 15 is kind of even crazy for him. But I like the pick a lot. Jamel Dean gone. They still have their defense wasn't great last year, and I think it while not the biggest need on the team, like an edge or a linebacker after Levante David, still a good fit. And I think that would be a good pick for them. Next up, we have the Jets. Once again, they took Arvell Reese earlier. Could still go a bunch of different ways now. They just traded Jermaine Johnson. They did get Sweat from Tennessee. So I think that kind of helps the D-line, but they still need to replace Jermaine Johnson. I like Akeem Mesidor here specifically, but he is a little bit older, and while I don't think that would matter for like the later teams or a team that wants to win now, for the Jets, who I think are going to complete rebuild, need to burn it all down, or tear it all down, build it back up. That doesn't make a ton of sense. I feel like they don't need offensive line. Honestly, if the board falls this way, I could definitely see them trading down because there's not really anyone I'm loving with this pick. But this is kind of high for him in my opinion, but I'm actually going to go with Keldrick Falk from Auburn. I'm higher on him than most. I know we talked about it in the BDB mock. Miller and Nicole aren't really high on him. I'm higher on him than both of them. I think he's a really good run defender. His pass rushing isn't really there yet, but I think he can still be a very good player, develop into something. And I really like defensive ends or edge rushers, whatever you want to say, who can rush the passer. Sorry about that. Let's take a short intermission. Ran out of water. Was kind of dying a little bit. But going right back into the swing of things, I like Keldrick Falk a lot more than most people probably do. There's some weird confusion on his age, which I don't know how that even happens anymore. But, he's still quite a bit younger and has time to develop and fits more of the time frame for the Jets rebuild than like a Messidor does, even though I think Messidor is probably going to be a better player. Next up, we have the first of our division rivals, the Detroit Lions. I obviously think they're going to go offensive line. They have a lot of players to replace. Taylor Decker's gone, which I think is probably where they're going to go is offensive tackle. And I think Spencer Fano makes the most sense here, so I'll just keep it at that again. Going purely off Miller's opinion on things, I think he's the best offensive lineman left, and that makes a ton of sense. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings. They obviously don't need offensive tackle, having one of the best duos in football. I kind of hate how this board has fallen because one of my favorite players in the draft is still here at a position of need. I think he has been mocked to Minnesota quite a bit. So Dylan Theinman from Oregon would be a great addition to Minnesota. We don't know if Harrison Smith is coming back. And I think he's an insane player. So I would hate to see this personally. Would probably cry a little bit. I know he's probably not falling to 25, but I would love to see him in Chicago. And I think he's going to be a very good player. Honestly, the top three safeties in this class, I'm high on all of them. I'm not saying he's anywhere close to Caleb Downs, but honestly, he's probably in my top 10 favorite players in the class. And watching him go to a rival, it would be horrible. We have Carolina up next. I could see them go a few different ways. With how the board has fallen, I'm not as high on Cooper Jr. as most people. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just not. I wouldn't take him this high personally. I really liked who Nicole picked for them in our BDB mock draft. I could see them going offensive line. I'm actually going to go with the other Utah offensive lineman 2 picks later in Caleb Lomu. I think Akonwu, I think, had a pretty severe injury at the end of last season, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's who I'm thinking of. Bryce Young has really shown that he can be a franchise caliber quarterback. Brought them to the playoffs last year, albeit in a very bad division, but they still brought it there and competed with the Rams, who made the NFC Championship, beat my Chicago Bears, and they looked pretty solid in the playoffs. So I think Bryce can be that kind of guy. I think he could use more weapons, but there are some receivers who are going to be day 2 guys who I think can contribute right away. And I think offensive line makes a ton of sense for them here. And Lomu has the versatility to play either right or left tackle. He played both. He can also swing inside and maybe play at guard as well. So it gives them some versatility on the offensive line. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys here. Once again, they got Delane earlier. I'm going to stick with offensive line back to back. They're kind of flying off the board at this point, but we're going to go with Monroe Freeling from Georgia, who I could honestly see going a lot earlier than this. I know from rumors as of late, he's been rumored to go as potentially as high as the top 10. There's a lot of teams higher on him than the general population, I guess you could say. And I think Dallas could use him. He's a big body. And they do need some tackle help. Obviously can contribute right away. And while they weren't great last year, per se, they can still compete. They have Dak, who I think is one of the more underappreciated quarterbacks of his time. Dak is a definitive top 10 guy, pushing that top 5. I think Dak is a very good quarterback, and giving him some protection is going to help. In the long run, they have CeeDee Lamb, they have George Pickens, they have Jake Ferguson. Like, they have so many weapons. And Javonte Williams was a very good running back last year. They traded for Quinnen Williams, getting Mansour Lane earlier in this draft. Like, they have some pieces. I think giving them someone to help keep Dak upright would be huge for them, especially with the second first-round pick. 21 with Pittsburgh. I mentioned earlier Mendoza's the only quarterback I would draft in the first few rounds this draft class. I know there's rumors Ty Simpson. I really, really do not like Ty Simpson. He's very jittery in the pocket. He just doesn't give me the I don't view him as a guy who's going to be a long-term answer at quarterback. And I think overdrafting quarterbacks is what gets GMs fired more often than not. So I'm going to keep it as maybe someone trades up in the second round for him. I'm going to keep him out of the first round, probably. So to avoid quarterback, and who knows, maybe Aaron Rodgers comes back and they could go wait another year till next year whenever it's supposed to be a really, really good quarterback class. I know it always says, oh, wait till next year, and the quarterback class isn't as good as it was supposed to be. I know, like, this year was supposed to have Dante Moore from Oregon, and he stayed for another year, surprisingly, but it's going to have Dante Moore, probably Arch Manning. My mind is blanking on the South Carolina quarterback, but there's a few guys who I think next year are going to be a lot better than the class this year. With that being said, I think I'm actually going to have them go receiver opposite DK Metcalf. I'm really high on him, which I hate saying because as a Longhorn fan, hyping up an Aggie is gross, but Casey Concepcion from A&M, very good receiver. I think he's going to be a very good contributor right away. I think he kind of is great at the things DK Metcalf lacks. I think he's a good route runner. He's good at getting open. And whoever they have at quarterback next year, I think he would be a huge weapon for. Maybe a little bit early for him, but I think it makes a ton of sense. Which goes to the Chargers next, who I won't name who it was, but I was told that it was like the worst pick in our BDB mock draft last year. I did kind of forget about a certain someone existing, but I guess I have a chance to redeem myself here. And I'm actually going to go with Akeem Mesidor, the edge from Miami. They are in a win-down mode. I'm not saying – I say like he's older, like he's going to retire soon. He's what, 24, 25. So he is a little bit older, but he would get to contribute right away with Khalil Mack, learn behind him. I think it's a good pick. They're in a win now mode, so he can contribute now and still be for the future. And learning behind a guy like Khalil Mack would be huge for his development into an even better superstar. We have the Eagles up next. It just came out, I think, earlier today. AJ Brown they're rumored to be finalizing a deal that would make AJ Brown a Patriot post June 1st for like salary cap reasons. I don't know what the trade would be exactly. It could go a few different ways. I think the one that makes a lot of sense here, they have two very, very good offensive tackles. But so the Eagles have always been a team that does what I love to do in the draft, which is draft just best player available. All of the good teams will draft BPA, especially at the back end of the first round when there's whenever maybe reaching for a position of need doesn't make a whole lot of sense with the talent disparity left. So I'm going to go with Max Iheanacho from Arizona State. Gets to learn behind Mailata, Lane Johnson, I don't assume has that many years left. And he's kind of still a raw prospect. I think he can be something special, but getting to learn behind both of those guys would be huge, and they could develop him into a plug-and-play starter after one of them retires, and I think that would be a huge fill a huge need for the Eagles for the future, which comes up with the Browns next. I know there's been rumors of this guy going as high as their first pick at 6. Falling to 24 would be huge for them, and I'm going to go Caden Proctor from Alabama. Another guy who I think is raw. Alabama isn't the Nick Saban-led Crimson Tide of years past, but they still have some pretty good players, and I think Proctor could develop into another good offensive lineman. I know the Browns are in love with him, so I think if he's here at 24, no doubt in my mind they're spraying that card up to the podium to take the offensive lineman. With that being said, we are finally to pick 25 and my Chicago Bears. With how this board has fallen, there's someone I am incredibly high on still left. I could see them going with a McNeil Warren, safety from Toledo. I could see them going offensive lineman, maybe a Blake Miller. I could see Zion Young. I think linebacker is a big need. I don't think they go linebacker this early. I don't think anyone other than Styles is a first-round caliber linebacker, unless you count Reese as a versatile guy. I think I am actually going to go with someone I love, kind of different from, I guess kind of similar to McCoy. Great 2024 tape. McCoy didn't play in 2025. My guy here, Peter Woods, was so dominant in 2024 and then fell off a cliff in 2025. But I still love him as a player. I don't know if it has his age here. Does not look like it. But I like him a lot as a player, and I think with a guy like Dennis Allen, who's known to be able to develop defensive players and on the defensive line, I think Peter Woods developing into something would help the Bears defensive line, which is currently having a bunch of nobodies. We have Montez Sweat, I think, is a great second edge, and Austin Booker, who currently is a rotational guy. I could see him developing more, but as of now, just a rotational guy. And I think Peter Woods would help the interior, where Javon Dexter hasn't lived up to expectations. We have Grady Jarrett, who's aging and declining. Dio Odiengbo, got hurt last year early, was a big money free agent signing, but didn't really live up to that. They had a huge need at the D-line, and I think Peter Woods would make a ton of sense here. I would be thrilled with Peter Woods at 25. I've seen a lot of things of him maybe not going first round at all. if we got him in the second round, I'd be obviously even more thrilled. But I like Peter Woods, and I think a team with good enough coaching can really unlock him and bring back that 2024 Peter Woods. With the Bills up next. I haven't really seen him mocked here, but I'm going to actually go Emmanuel McNeil-Warren at safety, opposite of why is my mind blanking? The Utah safety they drafted first or second round a couple years ago. Excuse me. Okay, yeah, sorry, I had to break. I had to look it up. It was killing me. It's currently on their depth chart. They have Cole Bishop starting at one safety spot and Juno starting at the other. Safety is a huge need. I think McNeil-Warren would be great for them. And they don't have another pick till round 3 because trading their second for DJ Moore, which love DJ Moore, but a second for him with how much he was making was huge for Chicago. I think it'll be huge for Buffalo as well. I think it was a win-win. They could use a great receiver 1 for Josh Allen, and DJ Moore has some lackadaisical moments where he maybe takes a couple plays off, but he's still a very, very good receiver. But anyways, back to the draft. McNeil-Warren, I think, would be great for them. San Francisco up next. I'm going to go with Blake Miller, offensive tackle from Clemson. Trent Williams, maybe has a year left. I don't see him playing more than just another year. And he could be the potential replacement for him or start on the other side starting day 1. Houston up next. Honestly, anywhere on the offensive line would make a ton of sense, but I'm actually going to go offensive line and stay, where's he at? Close to home. Pasantis from A&M, another Aggie round 1, but I think that would be a good fit for Houston. They get a local guy. It's an hour and a half away from College Station, so local guy, good player, fits a need. Their offensive line is atrocious. They need to keep CJ Stroud upright. I think he can still be a franchise quarterback, but you have to protect him. Which brings us back to Kansas City at 29. I know I mentioned earlier there's a player I'd love for them to get at 29. Didn't do it on purpose, leaving him here. Just kind of didn't feel like he should have went to any of the other teams. But there is a cornerback from Clemson that I absolutely love. Avion Terrell, great slot corner. I am insanely high on him. I think that he is going to be a great player. I think he could fill in for the Trent McDuffie role immediately, take over the slot role. And I would love that pick for Kansas City personally. So with this, the Chiefs get Reuben Bain at 9 and then Terrell at 29. I think that is a great, great first round. Honestly, just based on round 1 would be one of my winners of the draft, getting 2 of my favorite players. And, corner, again, we mentioned earlier, being a huge need. I love that pick. Which brings us the Miami Dolphins at pick number 30. Again, they could use just about anyone. We had Mekhi Lemon going to them earlier. So that kind of helps with receiver. They could use more, but I don't think you take 2 in the first round. Maybe some later round guys, maybe a day 2 guy at best. I think with how it's fallen, I'm actually going to go Zion Young from Missouri to go opposite Chop Robinson. I think they're starting Josh Uche at the other edge position. Going for a guy like Zion Young makes a lot of sense. I think that they can make a duo with him and Chop Robinson, hopefully for a lot of years. Again, you could go any position, and honestly, that would help. Even quarterback, though not any draftable ones, in my opinion, at this point. They have Devon Achane and absolutely nothing else on that roster. It is atrocious. Shout out my boy Quinn Ewers. I think that he should possibly potentially start over Malik Willis, but that's just me being biased. But Zion Young, I think, would be a good pick there for Miami. The Patriots up next. Could also go quite a few different ways. I would say receiver if they didn't trade for A.J. Brown. They could still draft one, but I see that being a lot less likely. I'm actually going to have them going edge and drafting Malachi Lawrence from UCF round 1. I know what is this? The PFSN board has him ranked, what was that, 50 something? I've seen him a lot in a lot of mocks sneaking into the first round. I like him a lot as an edge, and I think he is a first round, top of the second round talent, and going there for New England makes a lot of sense. Calebon Chason, I don't remember where he signed, but I know he just left New England. Can maybe potentially take over for that role and develop into something, and they could use a premier pass rusher on that roster. Next up, Seattle. I kind of want to see them take a running back to replace Kenneth Walker, but I don't think Jadarian Price would be the best player available, and I think that's what more the route they should go. I don't really see them taking an edge rusher either at this point. Who would have thought that 32 would be the longest I would take on a pick in a minute? I apparently love Oregon for this draft class because I'm drafting a lot of their guys earlier. I'm going to Emmanuel Pregnon at offensive guard. For the final pick, excuse me, for the final pick, I think that they could use an offensive lineman to help maybe even develop. I don't know if he'd be a day one starter, but he is a good developmental guy that they could use in the long run. Honestly, I like this draft for a lot of players or for a lot of teams. I think there's a lot of good fits. Well, with that being said, I guess that's how I'm going to wrap up the end of the first round here. Love my pick for Chicago. Kansas City had a really good one. I wouldn't consider anyone like a loser from this thing. I think Falk maybe was a little bit early. I would have had them trade down if I was doing trades, which I'm not, because for one person doing a mock, that's a lot. But overall, I think everyone would be happy with this draft, I would hope. But I think this will be my last, final, and only mock draft. I might do something Bengal did where it was like a Wheel of Doom mock draft, which I thought was a lot of fun, and I think I could do my own personal twist on it. But without further ado, I guess that's how I'm going to end it. I'm going to leave Miller's channel in the description because I did shout him out a lot in this draft. BDB will be in the description, and maybe my socials. I don't know. But hopefully we see another video by me that's not, another year in the future for the next mock draft. But fun as always. Hope to see y'all again soon, and have a good one.